Hey, what's going on everybody out there? My name is Jakejames Lugo and welcome to the channel. Now you guys will definitely notice things are a little bit different, but that's not going to stop us from reviewing another game here on this YouTube channel. And what better way to kind of kick things off than to talk about a series that I think is not only fun, but I've also reviewed a couple times not only just on this YouTube channel, but over on thecoalition.com. There'll be links in the description box below so you guys can check out what I'm talking about. So if you guys haven't seen it already, Yakuza Kiwami 2 came out and it's a remake of the second Yakuza game that was over on the PlayStation 2. But without further ado, get your hair slicked back, get your three-piece suits ready, and let's dive right into this game. This is Yakuza Kiwami 2.
Yakuza Kiwami 2 is the second remake to come out based on the first few Yakuza games. The story follows Kiryu Kazama as he gets deeper and deeper into the Japanese criminal underworld, trying to stop a massive gang war from breaking out and uncovering conspiracies that go very high up. The game is a remake of Yakuza 2 on PlayStation 2 with a near identical story, but the graphics and gameplay are redone using Sega's new Dragon engine. It's the same engine that was used to make Yakuza 6 The Song of Life. It's a very pretty looking game, on par with later entries of the series, but it does have a few hiccups that have plagued the Yakuza games ever since the beginning. Despite this, however, Yakuza Kiwami 2 has some standout moments that are pretty nuts, continuing the tradition of the serious drama with a wacky sense of humor to complement it. Plus, how can I forget that soundtrack that just sounds so damn good, especially when you're roaming the streets and beating down rival gang members. If you never played a Yakuza game before, then you're in for a very wild ride.
Now, one of the things I have to mention is much like the other Yakuza games that have been coming out on the PlayStation 4, Yakuza Kiwami 2 is a very pretty game to look at. It's very colorful, it's really highly detailed. Exploring Kamurocho is pretty damn awesome. There's a whole bunch of characters running around, NPCs that are just interacting with the world around you. It really makes the city come alive overall. That's one of the things I really love about some of the later Yakuza games is that because of all the NPCs running around, all the different activities that you have there to do, both the side stories and extra mini games, this city really feels alive and it really feels like it never really sleeps. In addition to that, there's just so much detail put into the models of the different characters between Kiryu, Kazama, as well as all the other different Yakuza characters that you run into throughout the entirety of the game's story events. And speaking of story, much like some of the other Yakuza games, the game's events could kind of get a little bit confusing, even though it has that K-drama / J-drama type of feel to it. But one of the other things I think is really cool about Yakuza Kiwami 2, and much like the other Yakuza games, is that it has this juxtaposition between the really serious drama of the criminal underworld and all the crazy events you get into, with the wacky nature of all the other extra side content and other funny moments that you see in some of the side stories. I think it's pretty funny just to see the two extremes put into one game, and somehow it all works pretty damn well. But besides that, we have to talk about the gameplay of Yakuza Kiwami 2, which is very similar to some of the other games, with a couple little things added for extra flavor for this remake of Yakuza 2.
The gameplay of Yakuza Kiwami 2 is pretty much the same as every other Yakuza title, with a few exceptions. You can explore the streets of Kamurocho, getting into fights and completing objectives related to the main story. But if you need a distraction, there's plenty of things to do in the city, from classic Sega arcade minigames to managing a hostess business to make some extra cash. Most of your time, however, will be spent beating up gangsters and rival Yakuza members that will test you. Fighting groups of enemies can be a little challenging, especially with a camera that can be annoying to work with sometimes. You occasionally have to deal with enemies that could attack you off screen, as well as have to stop moving in order to reorient yourself and get a better angle of the action around you. Outside of this, however, Kiryu can wreak havoc on everyone with his bare hands, or use any weapon that you can pick up nearby. You can use bikes, street cones, and so many other objects, some of which you probably didn't even know you could use to beat someone down with. Defeating enemies and completing objectives does give you EXP to spend on new moves, better stats, and other abilities that help while exploring Kamurocho. It does take a while to level up, however, so getting EXP boost abilities is a must if you want to get all the good stuff that is very helpful later on. The grind to get them could be troubling, however, when you don't have a lot of EXP that you're gaining at the start, but that does change over time. Overall, there's not much that's brand new if you've been playing the Yakuza series for a long time, since they all follow a similar formula with combat and progression.
Now, probably the biggest criticism that could be said about the Yakuza series is that all the games kind of feel very similar and it feels like nothing really changes throughout every single entry of the series. However, for Yakuza Kiwami 2, there's a lot more influence from games like Yakuza 6 The Song of Life, where it's not only using the Dragon engine for the visuals and a lot of the physics that go into it, but also some of the gameplay elements, including the way that you level up Kiryu Kazama, as well as also the way that you fight different characters with different various weapons and some of the special moves that you can unlock over time. To be totally honest with you guys, unless you've really been playing all the different games in the series, you're not really going to care about some of the changes that are going into Yakuza Kiwami 2. It's really going to feel very similar to some of the other games, especially more recent games if you just got into the series. However, people that have really stuck with it ever since the PlayStation 2 days will notice some of the differences, even though a lot of the core mechanics are still there and it really kind of falls in line with the rest of the other games that have been coming out on PlayStation 4. In all honesty, my personal biggest criticism of Yakuza Kiwami 2 is the same that I've always had for almost every single entry in the series. There's a lot of different bugs and glitches that happen at random, there's harsh difficulty spikes in various different points of the story, and there's a lot of other little mishaps that happen while you're running around Kamurocho, Japan, and trying to experience all the different side content and other interactions you could have with some of the NPCs that are walking around. One of my biggest issues with Yakuza Kiwami 2 specifically is much like some of the other more recent games, there are certain points that the difficulty spikes are so harsh that you have to kind of go in with an expectation or at least know what's going to happen throughout those course of those events, like a boss fight or something, whether that means you have to actually bring a weapon or you have to have extra health items on you. There's different stuff that's just like you're not really prepared for, and the game never really telegraphs to you what's about to go down. So unless you get a game over prior to that, you're not going to know what's going to happen, and you're probably going to end up losing a lot or getting a game over at some point. Those little gripes aside, however, it's still fun to kind of go around and explore Kamurocho, Japan, just, mess around and get into fights on the streets with different Yakuzas and kind of take their money and such, use the different weapons that are around you to fight different groups of enemies. I think that stuff is still pretty fun. And even all the way through like these 7, 8 games and all these remakes and such, that's still a fun element to this series that I feel like doesn't never really get old, and a lot of people really find a lot of charm in that. But outside of the main story content and all the boss fights and main plot elements of Yakuza Kiwami 2, we do have to talk about all the extra side content and the mini games that are also included here. One of the things about Yakuza as a series that never really gets old and hasn't lost its touch is all the crazy amount of stuff you could do outside of the main game, which sometimes ranges around from the wacky to the interesting to the totally off the wall.
The bonus side content is what makes the Yakuza games so time-consuming. When you want to level up or just get away from the main story, you can complete many different side quests that act as short stories, which focus on the people who live in Kamurocho. Their contexts range from the mundane to the absolutely ridiculous and at times weird. Completing them does, however, give you various rewards that you can take with you back into the main story missions, which can be helpful when you least expect it. Beyond that, Kiryu could also partake in a construction RTS minigame similar to the Gang Creator from Yakuza 6, as well as a Hostess Manager minigame that has you running a host club. All of these have their own side stories and rewards that are tangential to everything else. You could definitely get lost trying to complete them, but they're definitely worth it after you put in a lot of time to finish them. When you complete the main story, you unlock a bonus prequel story that focuses on Goro Maijima. This gives more context to some of the events throughout the game, as well as a few other nods to later entries of the series that you will also find throughout the main game. There's no shortage of things to do in Yakuza Kiwami 2, and that is something a lot of series fans will appreciate.
Now for me, the best aspects of like all the side content in Yakuza Kiwami 2 is the Sega arcade mini games that you could play that are based on Sega classics, like Outrider, as well as also Virtual Fighter, and other games that are really classic Sega games that you can actually find in Japan in various different Sega arcades. That's just one recurring thing that you see in all the Yakuza games. There's a lot of Sega love into this, besides all the little Easter eggs and nods that you can find throughout the city. And specifically the Sega arcade, you get to play some of those classic games and also earn either, different money as well as also different stats and complete some certain side quests, which I think is pretty cool. The most annoying thing, however, which is the same as in real life, is the crane minigame, which I think is very freaking annoying. There's just no way to win that game. I never have any luck winning on this crane minigame. I know there's a process and there's a certain method to approaching it, and it's part of like some of the certain side quests, which are, thank God, very optional. You don't have to do any of that stuff, but it's still very annoying and still something that just kind of, really frustrated me when I was messing around with it. But luckily, I didn't spend a lot of time with it. I kind of moved on to some of the other better side content. And speaking of which, there's a whole bunch of other stuff you get to do, including the Hostess Club, as well as also the Maijima kind of like RTS mode, which is very similar to the Clan Creator over in Yakuza 6, The Song of Life. Very similar approach to it, which I feel like, I don't even think, if I remember correctly, that was in the original Yakuza 2. But again, there's a whole nother layer of depth with that game, as well as also the Hostess Club, and all this different stuff you could do to earn extra cash, to earn extra bonus stats, as well as also complete some mini quests that are tied to like all these other side and, little miniature plots in relation to the main stuff that's going on throughout the story. If you really care about getting value out of your games, then seriously, Yakuza as a series, and specifically Yakuza Kiwami 2, gives you a lot of bang for your buck. There's just a ton of stuff to do that you're going to be very busy for a very long time. You're going to get easily at least 40 to 50 hours out of this game, just based on the side content alone, because they're so off the wall and so crazy and so in-depth and intricate and complicated in some sections, compared to the main story, which is just basically beating up guys that are just coming at you. That being said, can I recommend Yakuza Kiwami 2? 2? Well, to be totally honest with you guys, I don't know if I would necessarily say this is the one game you need to play in order to get into the series. I still think that Yakuza 0 or Yakuza 6 is probably the better choices of games in order to kind of really get into the series. Or even then, I would say go back and play Yakuza Kiwami 1, which is a remake of the first game, and kind of play them in chronological order. For me, I feel like you're not only going to see the progression of the series, but you're also going to kind of get eased into all these characters and eased into the level of humor and the level of wackiness and craziness that the Yakuza series could really kind of go all out with. I know some people really, one of their biggest criticisms is that it's too off the wall for them, it's not serious enough, or it's too wacky in that regard. But either way, I feel like if you play those games and then come back and play this, you're going to appreciate a lot more of what's going on. And with that being said, that's my thoughts on Yakuza Kiwami 2. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this review. Again, I think it's a fun game. If you've played a lot of the Yakuza games, you're going to love what this has to offer. If you never played the original Yakuza 2, this is a great way to kind of get caught up with all that stuff. And there's even some extra stuff that ties it in with the rest of the series and kind of sets up some different things here and there. There's even a prequel story once you finish the main game that you could go back and play as Goro Maijima and get a whole bunch of extra context to some of the events that happen in this story. Regardless though, that's my thoughts on Yakuza Kiwami 2. Let me know what's up in the comment section down below and tell me what you guys think about Yakuza Kiwami 2, what you guys think about the Yakuza series, or any of the other Sega game franchises that are out there that are classic or iconic or whatever. Put it in the comment section down below and let me know what your guys' thoughts are. And if you can, don't forget to leave a like on this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel for all my videos related to game reviews like this, my new podcast shows, a whole bunch of vlogs that I have. I am uploading every single week for you guys. There's a ton of content that you guys are definitely going to enjoy. And also, big shout out to Jasmine Russell for supporting me at the Beast tier level over on my Patreon page. You're getting shout outs for the entire month on every single video. If you guys want that same type of love, if you want to support my content, if you want to get some bonus extra exclusive stuff, some of which I actually released today, check out the description box below. Just check out my Patreon page. Consider pledging at any one of the levels. Even pledging at the $1 level is going to get you guys a bunch of exclusive content that is really freaking awesome. Anyway, people, that's all I got for you guys. I will talk to all of you again very soon. Peace out and stay epic, everybody.